This is Nebraska Farmcast, a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability in the Department of Agricultural Economics at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm Ryan Evans. As businesses have adopted new ways of operating during the pandemic, many consumers have changed their behavior as well, taking advantage of services like delivery, curbside pickup, and video conferencing, to name a few. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln's annual Nebraska Rural Poll looked in 2021 at how the consumer habits of rural Nebraskans have changed during the pandemic. To discuss the results and what they may mean for rural businesses and consumers in the future, I am glad to be joined again by Becky Vogt, the Survey Research Manager with the Nebraska Rural Poll. Hi, Becky.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And you've got a new article where you go through some of these results that we're about to talk about. It's on the Center for Ag Profitability's website, cap.unl.edu. So first, what were some consumer habits that you asked about in the poll? And then have rural Nebraskans been engaging in these more often during the past 2 years?
Well, Ryan, as you mentioned in the introduction, we wanted to see if rural Nebraskans were using services like delivery or curbside pickup, as well as other options like online shopping or telemedicine type services. So we asked them if they had engaged in various items during the pandemic more often, less often, or about the same as they did prior to it. We found that at least 1/3 of rural Nebraskans reported engaging in the following more often. 44% had food from a restaurant delivered or used curbside pickup. So they patronized those restaurants without actually dining in. That same proportion, 44%, used video conferencing to visit with their friends or relatives. We found just under 4 in 10, 38%, shopped online for items other than groceries, and just over 1/3 or 34% had groceries delivered or used curbside pickup for their groceries. So many rural Nebraskans were using those delivery or curbside pickup at grocery stores and restaurants, as well as shopping online for non-grocery items.
Great. And were there some services that maybe we've come to know as becoming more common here during the last couple of years, but you found in the poll that rural Nebraskans really have not utilized as widely during this pandemic?
There were some services that were not as widely used. The majority of rural Nebraskans still hadn't done the following items, or they indicated they were not applicable. We found 79% had not had medicine or medical supplies delivered. Just over 7 in 10, 71% had not used curbside pickup at a store other than a grocery store, and 70% had not had a virtual visit with a doctor. So perhaps those services were not maybe available in their local community, or they maybe did not need those services like the virtual visit with a doctor or needing medicine delivered. That's an item that maybe wasn't applicable to everyone.
Sure. And were there trends in the relationship between the size of the community and how residents there responded about changing their habits?
There was a relationship with community size and utilization of some of these services. We found that persons living in or near larger communities were more likely than persons living in or near smaller communities to have engaged in the following activities more often during the pandemic. They were more likely to have had groceries delivered or used the curbside pickup. They were more likely to have had food from a restaurant delivered or used curbside pickup. They were more likely to have had a virtual visit with a doctor, to use curbside pickup at a store other than a grocery store, use self-service banking options, and the video conferencing with friends and relatives. So as one example, we found just over 1/2 or 55% of persons that live in or near communities with populations of 10,000 or more had had food from a restaurant delivered or used curbside pickup from that restaurant more often during the pandemic, compared to just 30% of persons living in or near the smallest communities, which had populations less than 500. So we see that using delivery or curbside pickup at stores or restaurants occurred more often in the larger communities, as well as virtual visits with doctors and self-service banking, which supports my thoughts earlier that I mentioned that maybe some of these options were not available or offered in some communities.
Absolutely. A great point. And were you able to find out how likely rural Nebraskans are to continue making some of these consumer choices going forward?
Yes. When we asked about their change of behaviors, we wondered, were they temporary due to some restrictions brought on by the pandemic, or would they continue using them in the future? So they were given that same list of activities and were asked how likely they were to engage in them going forward. Most rural Nebraskans reported being likely to shop online for non-grocery items and to use self-service banking options going forward. Many also said it would be likely for them to use the video conferencing with friends and relatives, to order food from a restaurant for delivery or curbside pickup, and to order groceries by delivery or curbside pickup. But similar to their current behaviors, most rural Nebraskans reported that it would be very unlikely that they would do some of those items going forward. So items they weren't as likely to think they would do in the future are, again, ordering the medicine or medical supplies by delivery, using curbside pickup at a store other than a grocery store, and having a virtual visit with the doctor. And again, we found that persons living in or near larger communities were more likely to say they would do many of those options going forward, such as using the delivery or curbside pickup options, the self-service banking, and shopping online.
And can you explain why you were at the Rural Poll interested in the answers to these questions, and then what some possible implications of all of this for rural businesses and or consumers in Nebraska, what those implications are going forward?
Sure. The implications for businesses really was the impetus behind asking that question. We were wondering if consumers were going to be changing those habits, and did businesses need to respond accordingly. So this data does have some possible implications for those rural businesses, although nationally some of these consumer behavior saw significant increases because of the pandemic, especially in the urban type areas or on the coast. But these shifts were less dramatic in rural Nebraska. Only a few items appear to have a likelihood of continuing in the future that we just mentioned. This could be due to several reasons I've already mentioned. As noted, these behaviors were more likely to occur in larger communities. So some businesses in smaller communities, they may not have been able to offer like delivery or curbside pickup, or at least the ability to order items online for pickup. In many urban areas, when you do it, like for groceries, for example, you can order online or use an app and have that. Well, smaller grocery store isn't going to have that ability to offer that type of option. Or another explanation is perhaps residents in those smaller communities may not have seen the need to change their consumer behaviors. They possibly continued to shop inside their local stores, and they ate in their local restaurants. So therefore, those results suggest that businesses in rural communities may not need to make many changes to their methods of operation, especially offering delivery or curbside pickup didn't necessarily seem to be demanded by the general population. But did want to point out that there were some certain demographic groups that were more likely to prefer those services. We found that many younger persons, especially aged 30 to 49, and married persons appear to want to continue to use delivery or curbside pickup for their shopping. It's probably for convenience, not necessarily safety concerns. I know many young parents would find it a lot easier to be able to shop for their groceries online and pick them up rather than trying to take their children to the grocery store. So if businesses want to be a little bit more appealing to those target markets, they might consider offering those options or continuing those if they are already offering those. And then one final point is the trend of increased online shopping is occurring nationwide, And that gives local businesses really the opportunity to expand their market if they're offering online purchasing. So there may be some opportunities for businesses to target certain groups by offering those delivery or curbside options, but overall, I think they will have to evaluate whether those opportunities outweigh any additional costs to offer those services.
Great. Well, interesting trends and great information there from Becky Vogt, the survey research manager with the Nebraska Rural Poll here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And for more information on the Rural Poll, you can visit their website at ruralpoll.unl.edu. And again, Becky has a new article where she summarizes a lot of the findings that we've been discussing here in this episode. And you can find that on our Center for Ag Profitability's website at cap.unl.edu. Thanks so much, Becky, for the time and the great info.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.